Immediately following Rosh Hashanah services at the Bayou City Events Center last week, my almost 10-year-old son rushed towards the bima as I descended the steps from the pulpit. Thrilled in anticipation of what I imagined would be loving congratulations and praise from my eldest child, who attended his first grown-up service, he wrapped his arm around my waist as we recessed through the sea of the congregation, and he said, "Mom, can you not tell any more embarrassing stories about me in your sermons?" And with that, I began revising my opening illustration for this morning. So picture a time spent with young children. Anyone's young children will do, just not mine. It can be your own kids or grandkids, or if you must, a time when you were a child. Consider a scene on a playground at a park, children running around, laughing, hiding, climbing, and swinging. And as with all scenes like these, at some point the playfulness turns rough or spins somehow out of control and someone gets hurt. The supervising adult rushes over to the wounded youngster in search of visible signs of injury and to assess the damage. Thankfully, in most cases, the youth's pride and feelings are significantly more bruised and battered than the little body. And then, of course, the playmate responsible for causing injury is called over to apologize. You know, it goes something like this. "Come over here. Say you're sorry for hurting your friend." "Sorry." "No, like you mean it." "Sorry." And then, within minutes, the children begin anew, running and chasing, swinging and hopping. From our earliest social interactions, hellos and goodbyes, conflicts and confrontations with friends and family, we are coached and instructed to say it like we mean it, when too often we don't. And because of the imposed obligation to say it like we mean it, we grow better capable of this skill. In essence, we utter words incongruous with our hearts, or at least disparate from our immediate emotional experience. On this day of days, this day of judgment, this day of repentance, of atonement, the ultimate day of at-one-ment, as we utter Ashamnu, Bagadnu, and Avinu Malkeinu, one has to ask, do we mean it? Or are we simply like good little boys and girls sitting where we're supposed to sit, saying what we're supposed to say on the day we know is the day we're supposed to say it? What is it that makes these our confessions and apologies and the forgiveness we grant this day different, authentic, true, or meaningful? It cannot be simply the words, for we're very good at the words. There must be something else, something more. One day, a well-respected rabbi boarded a train to take him to the town of Vilna for an extended visit with his son-in-law. He settled into his seat, and next to him sat a young man who was more than a little impudent. The rabbi lit a cigarette. The young man complained, and the rabbi obliged him by extinguishing the cigarette. The rabbi opened a window. This time, the young man complained that the compartment was just too cold, and the rabbi obliged him by closing the window. And so the train ride continued, the young man going on about one thing after another, voicing his complaints disrespectfully, and the rabbi going out of his way to complain with the young man's demands. Whatever the young man asked, the rabbi gave him. This fellow, of course, had no idea that the man sitting next to him was a rabbi, let alone the great sage Israel Salanter, founder of the Musar movement, which promoted the idea that religious study must be accompanied by strict ethical behavior. When the train arrived at the station in Vilna, the entire Jewish community was there to greet the great rabbi. The young fellow saw the reception being given the man who sat next to him on the train and asked, Who is that?" "That's the great sage Israel Salanter," someone replied. The young man's face fell. Suddenly, he was ashamed of his horrid behavior. He knew an apology was called for, so he made an effort to find out where the rabbi was staying. The next day, the young man went to the rabbi's son-in-law's house and knocked on the door. To his surprise, the rabbi was the one who answered. Immediately, the fellow launched into his apology. I didn't know who you were. I'm so very sorry," he said. Rabbi Salanter forgave him, which frankly is what we would expect of a sage, forgiving someone even if that person has wronged him in some way. Clearly, the behavior of the young man was wrong. There was no excuse for it, but the rule is that if someone wrongs you and apologizes, you're not supposed to be hard-headed about it. You're supposed to say, "Forgiven." And that is exactly what the great rabbi said. But Rabbi Salanter went further. He asked the young man what brought him to Vilna. "Oh, I came here because I want to earn a living as a shochet," the man replied, expressing his wish to become a ritual slaughterer of meat. "You know what?" Rabbi Salanter said. "It happens that my son-in-law is a shochet. He can help you to learn." The young man didn't know what to say. He was overwhelmed with gratitude. Rabbi Salanter introduced the young man to his son-in-law. It turned out that the young man knew very little. He was not at all prepared to work as a shochet, even at the level of an apprentice. Rabbi Salanter quickly realized this and said, "We need to set you up with lessons in order for you to realize your dream." So the son-in-law began to teach this fellow young man and got others to help in the process. It took a number of months, but the man did learn the trade, passed the necessary exam, and was given a license to work as a shochet. The next step, of course, was to find the young man a job in his chosen trade. So Rabbi Salanter, together with his son-in-law, found the man a position in a community not far from Vilna. The day the young man was scheduled to leave for his new position, he stopped by the son-in-law's house to say goodbye, and he wanted to thank him. "You're welcome," the rabbi said. "We wish you success and hope that everything will be good for you." "Before I go, I have a question to ask you," the young man said. "By all means," the rabbi replied. "Well, when I behaved the way I did on the train, and I asked you to forgive me, you forgave me. That I understand. In retrospect, I realize that that's what we're supposed to do when somebody asks for forgiveness. But after all I had done to you and the way I behaved towards you, I don't understand why you didn't just leave it at that. You forgave me, but then you went out of your way to help me. Why?" Rabbi Israel Salanter, being the ethical purist that he was, said to him, "Well, that is a really good question, and I'll tell you exactly why I did what I did. You see, I know human nature. When you asked me for forgiveness, I forgave you with my full heart. It was with no hesitation and no holding back. However, human nature being what it is, when somebody wrongs you, as you did me, there is a residue of ill feeling in the heart. Something remains, and that's not healthy. It's not good to have such feelings. And I know the only way you can rid yourself of such ill will is by doing good for the other person. So I resolved that if there was any way in which I could help you, I would help myself as well through the process of helping you. You see, helping you helped me rid my heart of any residue of ill feelings that I had. And so it is, and so it was." This special story, shared by Rabbi Reuven Balka, retold from the book 3 Times Chai, perfectly captures and illustrates inauthentic apologetics and wholehearted forgiveness. Putting aside the young man's embarrassment and shame-initiated apology, offered only when he recognized that he had offended a person with status and public recognition, we are reminded that to mean it in apologizing or offering forgiveness, we need to know ourselves and be honest with ourselves. We cannot run away from or simply ignore the feelings of hurt and pain we experience when wronged by others. Pain festers and becomes expressed in other ways when we do not confront it. Rabbi Bulka asserts that the best way to eliminate bad feelings is not by venting them and not by pouring them out or taking revenge on someone else, but rather by accentuating the good. The more that you bring out the good in yourself, the more the bad gets eliminated. On this day of truth, let's strip away the pretense. Let's commit to being honest in this place at this time. Let's admit that it's relatively easy to offer forgiveness with our words, for we do it all the time. We know it is what we're supposed to do. Much harder are the feelings of forgiveness. The story of Rabbi Israel Salanter inspires us to forgive with our words when asked, and then, more importantly, to keep going, to forgive with our spirit by way of our deeds. And isn't it the case that we need those deeds of goodness to purge out the residue of ill feelings, to transform us, to move us forward, to help align what we do with what we say, so that our insides match our outsides? And likewise, when we have offended, does not the apology come too easily to our lips? It's very easy to say we're sorry, so much so that the word sorry often fails to mean anything, let alone a heartfelt apology. My colleague, Rabbi Mark Kaiserman, recently wrote, "True repentance for past actions has 6 steps: recognition, responsibility, remorse, repair, resolve, and refrain." 6 steps. Yes, it's a lot, and it may take a while and be difficult, and that's what happens when we mean it. An unknown source tells us mere sorrow which weeps and sits still is not repentance. Repentance is sorrow converted into action, into a movement toward a new and better life. Imagine with each apology offered and every forgiveness granted, we connected it to action. When we are really sorry, it is powerful to do something to show we are sorry, to change our behavior, to commit ourselves to new and different action. Anything less falls short. When we're really sorry, we yearn to show those feelings by doing something. When we say hurtful words or raise our voices, it is the power of loving, friendly, kind words of praise and appreciation that go a very long way to heal the wounds of brokenness. And even more profound, the next time we feel the urge to lash out, we instead harness our emotions, controlling ourselves so as not to allow the barbs of our tongue to strike again. Yes, so difficult, and yet the only way to really mean it. Maimonides teaches you are forbidden to accustom yourself to use smooth and deceptive language. Do not say one thing when you mean another, but let your inner thoughts be in accord with the impression you give. Say what you really think. Even one word of smooth talk or misrepresentation is forbidden. You should rather have truth on your lips, a sincere spirit, and a heart free of trickery and deceit. This does not come naturally to us. It is hard to be so honest and seems to fly in the face of the social pleasantries and gestures we are accustomed to and so well trained in. When underwater in a sea of loose utterances of apologies and granting forgiveness, Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl said, if you want to acquire the habit of truthfulness, then whenever you catch yourself shading the truth or uttering a falsehood, make a point of saying unashamedly, I have just been guilty of an untruth, and you will soon discipline your tongue. Yes, we must stop ourselves, check ourselves. If not today, then when? our tradition teaches the sin that we commit, that's not the great crime. Temptation is great and our strength is small. Our great crime is that we can turn at every moment and we do not. We can turn, we must turn if our al chaitz, our confession of sin on this day, are to have any meaning and substance. We can choose to go forward in a new way, a better way, a more honest way. This morning's Torah portion reminded us to choose life so that we may live. We choose life when we choose to engage from a place of honesty, from integrity, even when, well, especially when it's difficult. That's what it means to live, to sing our soul's song, to be in harmony with our Creator in our world. The struggle is ours. We can do better. In closing, I share with you a poem written by Rabbi Deborah Haken called At the Heart of It All. There is no going back. Don't let Judaism fool you. Can you really do tshuva and return to a better you? Erase the mistakes, the shortcomings of the past year? Clean them up? Sweep them out the back door? There is no going back, only forward, only toward, turning, not returning. The question at the heart of it all, which direction shall I take of my own volition in answer to God's call? Or will the wind lift me up, swirl me around in the dance of life, and leave me scattered like the fallen leaves? On this Yom Kippur day, ours is the real work of looking inside ourselves, deep into our souls, to find and reveal the truth and wholehearted intention that resides within us. Beginning with our words and then solidified by our deeds, help us, O source of strength and truth, of compassion and love, to proclaim, yes, we really mean it. Amen.